to thanks, Matt, recording in progress, to the February full body meeting of the Employee Forum. So welcome everybody. I'm going to start off with some kind of announcements, recognitions. So this morning we are joined by Jennifer Pruitt rather, and she is being recognized and was a winner of the Staff Assembly Janet B. Royster Scholarship. So welcome, Janet, and congratulations. So Jennifer Pruitt is the program coordinator in the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs, a unit within UNC Research. She oversees the logistics for the career and professional development programs and special events offered through the office. In addition, she is the program coordinator for the Carolina Postdoctoral Program for Faculty Diversity, one of the oldest diversity fellowship programs in the nation. She has over 14 years of experience working at the university. And Jennifer is an alumna of Meredith College in Raleigh, North Carolina, and is currently pursuing a Master of Arts in Higher Education at App State with a concentration in university leadership and community college. So congratulations, Jennifer, and thanks for joining us today as we congratulate you on your scholarship. Round of applause for Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Let's see here. So we've got a few other announcements. An announcement about Robert Smith, although he couldn't be here today. Our fellow delegate, Dr. Robert Smith, who is currently the Associate Chair for Administration in the Department of Neurology, has been appointed as the Vice Dean for UNC Gillings School of Public Health. So please send him a huge congratulations and kudos on this new role. He's going to be fantastic, we know, as the new Vice Dean. So congrats to Robert. And then finally, last announcement, I have a rather sad one to share. So fellow delegate Phil Edwards is sadly leaving the university for a new opportunity. So I wanted to take this time to recognize Phil for your longtime service on the forum and at the university. You've served as our former parliamentarian, a former co-chair of the Personnel Issues Committee, and our current representative on the PRC Policy Review Committee. So you've been just such a steadfast advocate for UNC staff and just a really trusted colleague. So while we're gonna miss you greatly, STAC, Employee Forum alike, we're wishing you all the best on this new opportunity and new journey, Phil. So congratulations, we're sad to see you go. You wanna say anything?
Sure, I guess. Thanks, Katie, and thanks folks for all of the good times that we've had over the past 7 years, I guess, that I've been on the forum. I did some quick math. In my time here at the university, I have worked under 3 different chancellors, I think 3 or 4 different provosts, more vice chancellors that I can count. And the one group that I think has largely remained steadfast and the same in this is the forum. This is one of my, well, I shouldn't even say one of, this is probably my favorite professional experience to have on campus, is working with all of you. So I encourage you to continue to do the valuable work that you're doing, even when it seems like it's not necessarily taking hold at the rate that one would want. And I have the utmost confidence that y'all will make this place better than when you arrived. So thanks, folks. And I'll send out something for folks who want to keep in touch, but I don't know. Oh, so my new gig is remote, fully remote. So I'm still in Durham, the Triangle area, not moving anywhere. But thanks again, folks, for all this time. And I applaud folks who are sticking it out here.
No, thank you, Phil. We appreciate you and all your service. So congratulations. I know that you're going to do great. Okay, with that, we're going to start with our special presentations for today. So I want to welcome the Future of Work folks to this meeting today. So we've got Vice Provost Rick Wernoski, Vice Chancellor for Human Resources and Equity, Equal Opportunity and Compliance, Becky Mangini, and Operational Excellence Transformation Managers, Candace Reynolds and Susie Baker. So welcome to the 4 of you, and thank you for coming to give us another update on the future of work. Rick, why don't you take it away?
Actually, Candace is going to share the slides and Becky's going to kick us off here, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome.
Thanks. Someone to enable screen sharing, though, if you will, please.
You should be good to go now, Candace.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's great to see you all again. I'm going to be very brief and then hand it over to the real experts of the bunch this morning to talk to you a little bit more about the Future of Work project update. We've been talking about this for a while. You'll recall that early on, we had some early conversations about what we might want to do. We met with the leadership team or the Chancellor's cabinet and talked about how we might move this forward prior to the school year starting. We did then put in place a pilot. There were some measurements associated with the pilot, largely based on the work of this group. And really gathering data about what was working and what might inform where we want to be long term. And the design team, comprised of employees from across the campus, including your very own Katie Musgroves, really did the heavy lift on this and helped us assemble a flexible work option playbook to really support equitable and consistent decision making for supervisors and employees, complete with a decision making framework and a set of implementation resources to really help move this idea of flexible work arrangements forward. Candace and Susie are going to walk you through a bit more of what are the steps coming next in just a few minutes. But before I turn it over to them, I want to spend just a minute on the guiding principles behind this work. So the Future of Work project really solidifies flexible work location options for non-faculty employees. We focused on non-faculty employees because there's some flexibility built into faculty. They're also not leave earning employees in general. So the focus really was on non-faculty employees. It's built on the idea that the core of Carolina's mission is to have a fully residential living and learning experience that brings together students, faculty, and staff in a world-class teaching, research, and service endeavor. We're really fully committed to retaining this residential experience and know that interaction and collaboration are at the heart of what we do. That makes us different from some other industries in that we're not really prepared to go fully remote or sort of navigate flexible work arrangement in a different setup, because this is sort of what we're focused on. But we also recognize that to be the best, we must recruit and retain the best workforce possible, and that the market of the workforce is changing. So we're committed to ensuring we have the workforce needed to achieve that residential mission, but also to providing the sort of work environments where our people can excel and grow, and to have some of the flexibility that some of our market competitors are providing. We want to do that where it makes sense for business purposes. So those are the two sort of principles that really the design team had to balance. How do we meet our residential learning objectives, and how do we build a workforce that has the sort of flexibility they want to get at both of those? The third icon on the right is somewhat muted. And when we first started talking about flexible work, if you look in the industry, or it's sort of in the marketplace in many other industries, there's a lot of conversation about the dollars to be saved, or the resources that employees save or employers save. And we, in our early conversations about flexible work, did say there's probably opportunities to save and consolidate resources. This project was not about that. One, we're not driven by the dollars and cents. We really wanted to be driven by the residential mission and then figuring out the workforce to match that. But the other thing is, before we can really make plans to permanently eliminate on-site workspaces for folks, we have to figure out whether we're being successful in the way we've divided up flexible work arrangements. So if some people go fully remote and it doesn't really work, we don't want them to not have a place to come back to on campus. Likewise, if we figure out that there are teams or sets of groups that do have an appropriate structure for flexible work and we could move people around, we want to do so only after we've determined that it works. So this is still on the list of things we'll pay attention to, but it's not on our current list, and it was not the focus of this effort. So recognizing that these were the guideposts and that this work fits firmly inside of the system policy framework provided to us. And I just want to remind everybody that policy says that employees must live in the state of North Carolina and live within a commutable distance. That's generally referred to as within 90 minutes of campus, with the idea that if you were called to campus, you could be here in 90 minutes, though that, it's hard to make a determination of what that commutable distance looks like. But does require people to live in the state of North Carolina, and that decisions about flexible work remain in the purview of the supervisor and leadership. This project is intended to give employees a much bigger, or be part of the conversation, but at the end of the day, flexible work arrangements are driven by business need and supervisors and leadership. I'll turn it over to Rick and Candace and Susie to walk through the details of how this will play out. But before I do, I want to give a big shout out to the design team for the work they put in to get us to this place. And I'm particularly excited, sort of to Phil's point, sometimes we talk about the role groups, whether it's the forum or teams like this can play. This is not a leadership driven project. This is a project that really was the leadership asked a group of employees to help us think about ways to do this. And they designed this and the leadership adopted it. So I really just want to give a huge shout out to that team for all of the work they did in thinking through the complexities and navigating this process and how we continue to keep Carolina great and we continue to recruit and retain the best people while also doing so within the framework of our existing structures and policies. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick and Candace and Susie to walk through the next pieces.
Thanks, Becky. I will just touch quickly on the agenda, and Katie had reached out and asked for some more specifics. And the last time this group was in front of you all, we kind of talked about it in concept and talking through what the work of the design team was doing. And again, a big shout out to the design team and Candace and Susie for help facilitating that discussion. But hopefully, Katie, this will address kind of what you were thinking about. And we're open to questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Susie and Candace to talk through our approach and where we are with communications. We started that rollout this week of communications, and then get into some of the kind of in the weeds per se on how this process will roll out. And hopefully that'll give you some insight to where we are now going beyond the pilot.
All right, thanks, Rick. So first of all, we'll talk about our approach, and this is something I believe we shared the last time that we provided an update to you all. So we are looking in this project to establish guardrails for flexible working arrangement decisions. So, essentially with this team, we're defining the guardrails, if you think about on a road, that keep you safe, and then we're turning it over to the schools and units, supervisors, employees to figure out sort of where things fall in between those guardrails. So we hope this approach will provide guidance for supervisors, will provide consistency for employees who are in similar roles in different parts of campus, and also will provide a framework for teams and individuals to have these conversations around flexible work arrangements. So just to quickly share some of our communications, Monday, this all sort of started with our rollout. We posted resources online. We've been training HR officers. We presented yesterday to the joint cabinet for the Chancellor. Today, talking with you all, we'll have a note in the Workwell newsletter on Friday, and then Monday there will be an article in the Well. So we're starting to get the word out and share this more with campus, that these resources have been posted. So the things that we have created, there's a flexible work options playbook. That's the primary resource. We are not going to go into the weeds very much today because there's a lot there and we have limited time. However, happy to answer questions, and your HR officers or representatives are another great resource for that. But the flexible work option playbook, I encourage you to take a look at. It includes a decision-making framework and then also some implementation resources. And there are a few other resources I'll highlight. There's the work location options PDF that lists all of the job categories on campus, and then the options for that job category, whether it's on-site, hybrid, or remote. It'll, big spreadsheet that lists every job category and the options for that job category. So that's also posted. Susie just dropped the link into the chat, so you can go take a look at that. There's an employee work location form that this is really intended to guide the conversation and also to document the conversation between the employee and the supervisor. So it mirrors the playbook steps, and the intent is that you would fill that out as you're talking through the process and deciding on a work location for an employee. And the other piece is the school and unit plan. This is really what HR officers and deans and vice chancellors will use to pull together information for all of the employees, all the non-faculty employees in their school or unit, and will be submitting those plans for review and for approval centrally. So just to give you a more of a high level and timeline look at when this is happening. So starting February, actually we technically launched on the 31st of January, but really February and March is when you'll have the opportunity to make these plans. So we have 2 months for schools and units to go through this process. This really is a leader initiated process. So we are looking to the deans and vice chancellors, and Becky shared this yesterday with that group to start this within their schools and units to really think about how this could work in the school and unit, and to if there are any different parameters they want to set, or they want to be more or less remote based on different things, they should share that with their leadership, with the employees, and really kick off this process. And then it goes down to a department assessment. And I also should note, the leader hopefully and the HR officer will work to set some internal deadlines for this process, because we centrally aren't saying, you know, these are the 5 steps and you must do them at these dates. So we're really looking to the schools and units to define that themselves. The department assessment step, the level of that might take place will look different probably across campus, but this is where supervisors think about what makes the most sense for their teams and what working arrangements make the most sense for their teams. We hope this will be a great opportunity to think beyond COVID. A lot of the current pilot arrangements, I think, were made with, you know, COVID at the forefront. And so the idea here is to think beyond COVID, think more long-term, what makes sense for that team, for those units to best meet their business objectives and deliver their services to campus. So thinking about that and really going through a process just for the leadership before then having the individual conversations. And that's the next step. These individual conversations between supervisors and employees, going through the decision-making framework in the playbook, going through and completing the work location form, and making that decision for that individual. This is what the playbook focuses most on, is this individual assessment step. After those have been completed and brought together into the school and unit plan, the dean or vice chancellor reviews that. Once they approve that, that is submitted to the central group for approval. The deadline for submitting school and unit plans is March 31st, 2022. So that's our first important deadline, March 31st, 2022. Plans can be submitted earlier. So I know some areas are eager to get started with this. And so you don't have to wait until March 31st. If you submit earlier, those plans will be reviewed earlier, but March 31st is the deadline for school and unit plans to be submitted. And again, that needs to come through the dean or vice chancellor or the HR officer. And the next step is the central approval. This is where there will be possibly questions, feedback, and eventually approval of the plan. And important to note here for you all is that once the plan is approved, employees will need to be given at least 30 days notice to implement their new working arrangement if it's something different from what they're doing today. And then schools and units have until June 30th, 2022 for the full implementation of their plan. So March 31st is the deadline for submitting, but then implementation has a longer timeline. So that can go until June 30th, making sure that employees have at least 30 days notice if their work arrangements are going to be changing. Okay. I see a quick question. I'll go ahead and answer. The School of Medicine is out of scope for this because they have their own effort. Thank you for that question. I want to make sure we're clear on that. And then going forward beyond March 2022, there will be an annual review of these flexible work arrangements. So this is something that will happen probably in the summer. Office of Human Resources will send out a notice to the HR officers as a reminder that the flexible work arrangements need to be reviewed each year. And those can be, if nothing needs to change, nothing needs to be done, but if changes need to be made, we'll have that prompt to make sure those are being reviewed. If changes need to happen outside of that annual review process, that also is possible. This is really based on business needs. So if business needs change, or as Becky was saying, if something was tried and that the model wasn't working, it needs to change to something else to try a different way. That can also be done out of that normal cycle, and that would just be working with the HR officer. All right, so few important notes here. One is that work location options were centrally determined for all job categories. And this is so there's consistency across campus. So this is the one of the things we did for equity, is to make sure people who are in similar roles across campus have the same starting point for these conversations. So the decisions could go different ways depending on that job function that they specifically are in, but they will all have the same starting point. So this is something that the design team helped with, and the Office of Human Resources really refined and put together these work location options. And again, that's posted online. So for unique situations, an exception request can be submitted as part of the school or unit plan. So an exception would be if my position is, my job category says I can be on-site or hybrid, and my supervisor believes I can and should work remotely, that would be an exception request to have a flexible work arrangement beyond what is outlined in those work location options by job category. Next, Becky mentioned this earlier, but we want to be really clear that decisions are based on the business need for the position. That's really what is driving this. And again, thinking beyond COVID, longer term, what needs to be done to meet the business need for this position. And if within that, there are multiple ways the business need can be met, that's where employee preference comes in. So what does the employee want? That is one of the steps in the playbook, in the decision-making framework, is if there are multiple choices for meeting the business need, what works best for the employee. But it is position first, business needs first, and preference would be second to that. This is also not a based on performance, where higher performers have more remote work. It's not that at all. Again, based on business need for the position. All right, and the work location decisions are not by definition time limited. As we mentioned earlier, they will be reviewed annually, and they can be amended as business needs change. But this is something that's different from the pilot. The pilot had an end date. This does not have an end date, but it does have an annual review process. And the Office of Human Resources must report employee work location designations to the system office. So this will be a change with this process as well. These will be loaded into Connect Carolina and reported regularly to the system office as part of a new reporting requirement. And the HR officers or HROs have received training on this process, and they should be your primary point of contact for questions within the schools and units, and sort of how this all works. So that is all I had. I'm going to stop my sharing here, and I know we probably went longer than we were supposed to, but we can take a minute if there are any questions.
No worries at all. Questions for the Future of Work team? Shayna, your hands up.
I think you answered this, but I just want to see if you could clarify. Is this once these designations are determined, is this loaded into Connect Carolina as a change in your job so that full performance management is involved? Does that question make sense?
I don't know how to answer that exactly, because I'm not quite sure I understand, but this will be loaded into Connect Carolina. This is a new field that's being added so that we have this data and can be reported on. I don't know about how to respond to your question about full performance management. I don't know if someone else.
Sorry, full position management. I misspoke.
Okay.
So would the position then be changed in Connect Carolina, because that's a separate EPAR?
I don't know the answer to that, Shana. I'm sorry. I don't want to miss.
I don't believe, we can confirm that. I don't believe the position is changing, because while we're saying positions could be on-site, hybrid, or remote, it's not a guarantee that the next person would be in the same position. It sort of is based on our business need, but also, are you performance eligible? So if you are under a performance plan, you're not eligible to participate in a flexible work arrangement. That's just sort of a standard. That's always been the case. So it will be tied to the position, but also tied to the human.
Got it. Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Bill, your hands up.
I was just wondering if there's any mechanism in place for the university to be able to support units in, well, if a job is classified, let's say, as a hybrid or remote option, any mechanism to support units and being able to provide them with the necessary technology that they might need if they were to work remote. I know one of the things we ran into a lot early on in the pandemic was folks working from like personal devices, but from a location not on campus. And I guess I'm wondering how that gets, if the university can kind of mitigate that. I'm going to use my personal device, or worse, I'm going to have my request denied because my unit doesn't have budget to buy me a laptop. Is there anything in place to sort of help address that?
We have guidance in the playbook for that. There are not, if you're referring to resources in place to provide that is not something that exists, but there's guidance as part of the decision-making framework. One of the questions is the equipment available to be able to work remotely? And if that's not, then that's, that would not make sense for that person to be a hybrid or remote worker. So that is one of the criteria. And also we have some information about IT security and requirements and recommendations that need to be followed if you're working hybrid or remote.
I guess the hope would be that the university might come up with some funding to be able to support schools and units in bolstering whatever kind of IT budget they have to be able to implement this fairly and equitably across different units, depending on their budget situation, because every school and unit is unique in that way. Jacob, your hands.
Yeah, first off, I just wanted to say that I did take a chance to look through the playbook, and it is very thorough, very well done. I was actually very impressed, so I just kind of want to take a brief moment before I get into annoying, pokey questions to say that you guys did a really good job. I came in with very much a plan for the worst kind of attitude, and I was very impressed. I think you guys did a really tough lift, and I was very impressed with the amount of work. I was really excited to see some of the things like the compressed work schedules and stuff. I think you guys did a very robust response to this issue, and I think it does address the retention and attraction issues. I'm looking forward to seeing it roll out. I'm sure there'll be ones along the road. I did want to ask a little bit about, I just kind of two generalized questions. One, I noticed that there was no appeal process, and I think that might have more to do with the fact that it is leader driven, which I understand is also a system requirement. So you guys kind of have your hands tied in that regard. So if there's some clarity, that'd be great, but if not, I understand. And the other question was if you could just speak a little bit more to the composition of that central committee that is making the final decisions.
So I can answer it. So the appeal process, there is not a central appeal process. If there are concerns with decisions that are made, we hope that those can be addressed within the schooling unit, either with talking with the supervisor or going through the HR group in the schooler unit, but there is no central appeal process. The group that makes decisions, I don't know if Becky wants to chime in on that process.
Yeah, so ultimately, the decisions will be made at the primary decisions will be made at the dean and vice chancellor level, in a way similar to the way they were with the pilot. So supervisors will make recommendations, they will roll up. Then the dean or the vice chancellor will submit their list. And then there is a group with representatives from HR, the chancellor's office, the provost office, and finance reviewing these, and we're all sort of looking at them for different things. So HR is looking to say like, it looks like 80% of Gillings is scheduled to be on site. Well, 80% of HR is scheduled to be off-site. Why do we think that is? Let's just pay attention to that. Finance might just be looking at it from a space perspective, like what does it look like from do we have 80% of a group that's in lease space? What does that tell us long-term? The chancellor and the provost office are really looking to ensure that we've got, we're all looking at it, but also looking at coverage. The pilot, we really focus on back office functions. Some of the other units have done some testing more realistically or more recently. So one of the examples I heard was, I think in CAPS, and don't quote me on the unit, but I think it was CAPS that identified that a portion of their delivery of mental health services has been online. And so they've done some assessment of what percentage that is, and are talking about allowing a certain number of people to do those remote counseling sessions from a remote location, assuming they can meet the other elements that are in the playbook about being in a distraction-free environment and having the ability to have safe and encrypted IT. And some of those things that you have to build in for protection, and those duties, those are different for different jobs, but they're using the data to drive sort of where changes might happen. And So we're looking at some of those things, but ultimately we're not going to say like, oh, I don't know, I think Katie Musgroves in particular should be on campus more days than we're not looking at it really at the individual level at that point in time. Yeah, we're the group of people that's looking at it are really trying to look at the intention behind this was to provide an equitable, as equitable as you can get in a situation like this, and a sort of a broad-based perspective on how we do this. We're looking to see if that's actually playing out in action. And, that's also to be able to respond to people who say like, oh, my student showed up at an office and there was no one there. How do we ensure that we're meeting some of those pieces? Because those calls often come to the offices of people who aren't going to be on this committee. So they want to be able to say they put eyes on these things and said, yeah, I approve that. And I know that, but these are the reasons why,
Stephanie?
Thanks, Katie. I'll be quick. I just wanted to say that this looks great. In particular, I just wanted to thank you guys for highlighting the different types of schedule options around compressed work schedules and seasonal flexibility, and really like laying out options and encouraging flexibility. I think that will be really helpful as this gets thought about and implemented in departments and schools. So just a big thank you there.
You're welcome. We were happy to highlight some flexibility that was already existed with current policies, but I think people weren't as familiar with. So yeah,
totally. That exactly. I don't think everyone's read through the policy and knew those were options. So you guys did a really great job with that.
Liz?
Hey, and this is wonderful. Thanks to everybody that put so much work into it, and especially the way it was approached. As somebody who's going to be taking on more supervision and who's looking into all the training resources for, we don't get to call ourselves managers all the time, but essentially taking on that role, are there going to be some really good resources for people new to supervising people doing remote work, especially if we're not a quote unquote manager, but we're responsible for their output, the quality of their work, and keeping them sane and able to manage a remote workload? I'd love to see some links or things on the talent website. Thanks.
There are the resources that we're providing. We do have a section in the playbook that is guidance for supervisors that outlines some things. It's a few pages. It's not super detailed, but it provides some guidance on things that supervisors need to be thinking about. There are also several links to different trainings that are on LinkedIn Learning that can be accessed through Carolina Talent that we've linked to. There is not a plan right now for any kind of UNC specific training offered to supervisors. But we do have some of that LinkedIn Learning for supervising remote employees, and then the guidance in the playbook.
Yeah, and I think we did try and build some of that in, like Candace said, to that section of for supervisors at the end. But it would be good to maybe eventually see post this project, maybe within Carolina Talent, as Liz was saying, kind of a build out of kind of a course options list that could kind of guide supervisors through things that could be helpful in that process.
I think we'll learn as we go along and obviously evolve as we go along. And certainly the more that we get into this position, we'll have opportunity to develop and meet the needs as we learn together throughout the process.
So got time for one last question, Jen. You're up.
Yep. And in typical academia, this is more of a comment than a question. But first, I just wanted to say spectacular work, really. Thank you for responding to the concerns from employees, from this body, and for doing such a really good job of putting together something this comprehensive. Super grateful. I had two questions in the chat, and Susie has answered one about that deans and vice chancellors are not required to submit plans. I would put to you that a lot of times where we find equity concerns at this university, it's not in the policy itself, it's in the way the policy is carried out. And so I think that if we do not require everyone to submit a plan, we create opportunities for vice chancellors. I won't name any of them, but I am aware of at least one that say, well, you're all adults, just do what works for you. And we're not going to make a formal plan. We're not going to do that. That's a compliance exercise. And then you have situations where you have senior people who work out of state for an extended period of time and come to campus for maybe 10 days. In a year-long period, all kinds, so like shenanigans abound. So I would just put to you that I think making it a requirement for deans and vice chancellors to go through and do a comprehensive look at their departments and say, this is what we will commit to doing for the next year is going to be a way to help solve some of those backdoor equity problems. And I did ask if HR would audit it. As someone who leads a department who frequently gets asked to audit things, I don't ask that lightly because I know you don't have the people or the time to do it. But I do think maybe if we require people to submit these plans, then that helps to mitigate the need for the audit.
Fair point.
Thanks, Jen, for those points from the policy perspective. Always appreciated. So I'll close out and thank you all for kind of coming and answering all these questions. I will also say a thank you to the group for kind of acknowledging some of the things we asked for in terms of the timeline, because I know some folks were super concerned about the deadline of the current pilot program and being able to implement whatever changes come. So the flexibility around having until June 30th to implement these plans is very much appreciated. I know will assuage a lot of concerns across campus. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming. So next up, I'm going to welcome Leah Cox back to the Employee Forum. She is here to give us an update and talk about the work and progress of the university's Diversity and Inclusion Office. So welcome, Leah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for inviting me back. So this topic will be a lot lighter than the one that we just had, so you can sit back and breathe a little bit. So I want to tell you a little bit about things that have been going on in DEI space and UODI specifically. So we have hired a new senior director, which was a big relief for me. It is Patricia Harris. I think many of you know Patricia. She's been just rock stellar on this campus, and so I'm excited to have her leading part of the team, especially that is focused on student access, which needs a lot of focus right now, but she will be working on a variety of other projects. So I'm sure she is not shy about reaching out to anyone on this campus. So I'm sure you will all hear from her at some point in time. We are also looking at hiring 4 more individuals because we really have no one on our team. So we're hiring 2 trainers and educators. We just finished the interview process and we'll be making a selection by next week, and hopefully we'll have them in the space before the end, or at least have accepted to be in the space by the end of February. So we're looking for those individuals who are going to be helping to do training and education and new projects and initiatives across the institution. And we had some good candidates, so I'm looking forward to bringing them on board. We also are looking for an assistant director. So the position will close this Friday for our student access and retention programs that will report directly to Trish. And then Trish is also looking for an administrative assistant. So those positions. So if you know of somebody really great, please just send them to the website to apply. We're now getting ready to do some work around intergroup dialogue. So for those of you that don't know about intergroup dialogue, it's taken from the University of Michigan model and looking at facilitating those difficult conversations around identity. It could be race, religion, ageism, ableism, sexual orientation, gender identity. And so we've asked several folks across the institution from multiple different places and spaces who would be interested in learning to be a facilitator. And as you know, we have conversations across this campus on some difficult issues, but most folks are not trained to facilitate those conversations, and oftentimes they don't end up well. So we're hoping to make some changes here. And so the first training will start next week. It's a 2-day training. The facilitators who developed the program, and this is a program that's all across the US and institutions all across the country at different institutions, higher ed institutions, who are learning to be facilitators. It can be used in the classroom, in department meetings, in larger meetings, anywhere that we need to have some facilitation. So that will start next week. And then probably by summer, we'll be ready to do some more training of trainers. So stay tuned, but then you will be able to ask for someone to come in and facilitate a conversation, or if we have student issues that need facilitation, we're going to be there for you. We're also looking at, I'm working with Lynn Williford, we're looking at doing a climate survey for the institution. From what I understand, there hasn't been a UNC climate survey in probably 5 years or more. So we need to make that happen. So we're looking at all of the different survey instruments from across the country and institutions that are peers to us, what they're using, and some that we may suggest. And we're also partnering that with Halil International that is also looking to do a survey across our campus, which is needed to look at what's going on with our Jewish students and the culture here. We're also looking at doing a progress report where the DEI Council is working on a variety of issues. And we have several subcommittees that are going to be doing some work, looking at data, pulling up policies. Jen has done a great job of pulling up, I can't even tell you how many policies to review and look at them with a DEI lens. And then creating that report that we all need to know what's going on. We also, probably many of you have seen, if you haven't, you can certainly visit the website where we have done a nice revision. Adriana has done a great job of revising our calendar related to religious holidays. It's easy to find, it's easy to understand, and we're still working on it, but she's done a great job. So I would suggest you visit it. And then if you have questions, feel free to contact my office. And then lastly, what we're doing, it's not last, but one of the other things I'll share with you is that we're looking at setting up a large resource of DEI trainings and potentially a certificate program. So we know that consultants came a couple of years ago, traversed the campus and doing sort of a DEI groundwork. DEI 101 is what I would call it. And now departments and colleges and schools are asking us what's next. We need more training. We need more of everything. And so because there will only be 3 of us moving across a very large institution, we recognize that we have to do some other things. So some would be face-to-face, and then others we may be creating videos or other ways for you to get the knowledge that you'd like to have around DEI. So those are just some of the things that are happening in the next couple of months. I'm hoping that you will invite me back at some time again, Katie.
Of course.
So that as we move along and things continue to change, that I can update you and share and then answer any questions that you have.
Well, thank you, Leah, for all of those great updates. Do we have any questions for Leah and the team?
Ooh.
No questions.
All right.
Well, again, thank you, Leah, for being here and for giving that update. We always are welcoming you to any full body meeting that you'd like to come to. So please join us anytime.
Thanks.
All right. So next up on the agenda, we've got our traditional roundtable with Chancellor Guskiewicz and eventually our new Provost, Chris Clemons. I don't know if he's here yet. I know he was teaching a class from 9 to 10. So we will give him some grace and leeway in joining us whenever he's able to. So welcome, Kevin. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It is great to see everyone, and appreciate the opportunity to join Employee Forum today. And Katie, I just want to start off by thanking you for your presentation to the Board of Trustees last week. I'm grateful for your advocacy of our staff, and I know that I speak for many on our campus, so thanks for all that you're doing. Also grateful to the team who presented earlier on the future of work. I just want to restate something I said yesterday at our joint cabinet meeting. This is a Chancellor's cabinet combined with the Provost leadership cabinet. Every other month we get the 2 groups together, and we had a really lengthy agenda, but I think perhaps maybe the most important of those items was where Becky and Rick, Wernoski and others talked about the future of work on our campus. And as I said yesterday, this is really important. If we're going to provide our students with a world-class residential experience that we talk about, we have to be sure that we can retain and attract an exceptional workforce. And I know that this is important to all of you. And there are several strategies that we are working on, and what you heard earlier is just one of those. And I'm confident that we're going to make progress. And I want you all to know that this is a priority for me. I've been talking about this not just with our leadership team here, but with the system office and amongst other chancellors who are developing strategies for this. So I want you to know I'm committed to this. I also want to thank Dr. Cox for her presentation. I started my first meeting of the day was with Dr. Cox and getting updates from her, and really excited that she's building out an exceptional team in her office that impacts every corner of our campus. And just could not be more grateful for her and her sort of expertise and wisdom and new ideas that Leah's brought to our campus from Townsend University. And she's only been with us for about 6 months, a little over 6 months, but is doing a great job. And so I would encourage you to call her back as often as you can. And I'm glad that you're going to have a chance today to meet our new provost, chief academic officer, Chris Clemons. And thanks for moving the time to ensure that Chris could get here. When he was appointed provost back in early December, he said, I really want the job, but I'm scheduled to teach a class this spring. And, do you think I should try to find someone else to teach it? I said, no. I said, I love the fact that our provost is going to be in the classroom with our students. I co-taught a course this past fall. And I think you've heard me say this before. When people ask me, and I've been asked this quite often in this job, what's your favorite place on campus? And I think they think I'm going to say the Old Well or the Bell Tower or the Forest Theater or the Smith Center. And my standard answer is in front of a classroom of students. That's my favorite place on campus, and I mean that, and that's why we're here. And so I know Chris is enjoying teaching that class, and I know will join us shortly if he hasn't already. But this is his second day on the job, so he's off to a running start. He had had about a 6-week ramp up time to get ready for this. And I know he spent a lot of time with people around campus, even though he's been here since 1998. There's still a lot that you don't know about a campus. And when I became chancellor back in February of 2019, in fact, this is next week will mark the 3-year mark of that, of when I started. And it's hard to believe it's been 3 years. But I did a listening and learning tour, and I went around to, I think I had 24 different visits, different stops over about a 4-month period. And certainly the employee forum was one of those stops because I wanted to learn more. Even though I had been here at that time for about 23 years, there was still a lot that I didn't know. And I know Chris is doing the same. I think you're really going to enjoy working alongside Chris. While he's been here since '98, I've worked very closely over the past 10 years with him on various projects. I hired him as a senior associate dean for the sciences to replace me when I became dean of the college. And he really did a great job there of moving some initiatives along with the sciences. He then became the senior associate dean for research in the college, and then most recently the executive director for the Institute for Convergent Science. And he understands our campus, but it has admitted there's still a lot that he wants to learn. And I know you're going to help do that for him. But I think he's a physics and astronomy professor as well, and he still has an office over in Phillips Hall. And I told him it's good to have that secondary office outside of the South Building to go and get back to your sort of place of sometimes comfort where you began. And so I know probably won't be much time over there, but I want you to know that he's committed to the initiatives in the strategic plan. We're going to be working on some KPIs, key performance indices, over the next several months, so that we can be sure that plan is working, find out what's not working, and make some adjustments as needed. And so I know we're going to work to continue to work to secure Carolina's place as a leading global public research university, and that spirit of creative collaboration is going to be really important as we do that. And that means that we're working closely with all members of our campus community. And I know that Chris, like I do, will consider this the employee forum one of the major stakeholders that we have to work closely with. And before I wrap up and turn it over to Chris, I want to just say that I'm enormously grateful to Bob Bluen for his dedication and service over the past 4.5 years. I spoke briefly with Bob yesterday, and he said, I'm in day one of my research sabbatical, and I know he's going to continue to work hard for our university, both during the sabbatical and when he comes back onto faculty over at the Eshman School of Pharmacy. But I know he worked very closely with this group, and I know Chris is going to enjoy doing the same. So with that, I just want to say I'm grateful to all that you have done to help our campus community come together this past semester. The Omicron variant continues to present challenges for us, and I know it's not been easy, especially with childcare and elder care and other complications that many of our employees have, but we're continuing to work closely with our public health experts, state and local health officials and campus leaders to ensure that we can conduct our operations safely. And I felt really good coming out of the campus and community advisory committee meeting that we held last week. And Katie, thank you for your leadership there as well. And, I think our data indicates this week that things are trending downward in the right direction. A 38% decrease in student cases in the last week, and the numbers over the past 2 days have even looked even better. And so I think we're moving in the right direction. And I just want to thank all of you for what you're doing. So I think Chris is here now, and so I'm going to turn it over to him for some comments.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late. I was coming from Astronomy 205, which I teach from 9:05 to 9:55 in Chapman 125. The course is called The Medieval Foundations of Modern Cosmology, and I had 100 students. I have probably 70 now. I think the 9 a.m. time has not been gentle with some people who want to find something more amenable to their afternoon periods of alertness. It's great to be here and see you. I know some of you. I see Shayna there, former head of the forum. Yes, good to see you, Shayna, in our Statistics and Operations Research Department. So I come from the college. The college, of course, has hundreds and hundreds of staff, and I work closely with those in physics and astronomy, and then as Senior Associate Dean with the staff in the sciences, I know best. But all of our staff I see. I just walked by Dave, our landscaper, who I always see out taking care of Polk Place, and we always have a brief conversation because he likes hats in the same way that I like hats, and so we bond over our outdoor hat. I will say that I'm going to focus as provost in this office on being chief academic officer. The faculty are the academy that are here to teach our students and train them for futures in the state and to build the new inventions and industries that are going to employ those students with their technologies and their basic research. And all that supported by staff. I go to my classroom and I'm always amazed. Everything is there. It's ready to go. I feel like the room is well maintained. But I'm going to focus on how we got faculty advancement, a little more clarity around what we're doing with faculty in the HR department. So not so much standard HR. If you look at things like faculty awards, our faculty are certainly the equivalent of any of our peers, but we lag behind because we haven't been attentive to nominating them for the awards that they deserve. We haven't looked at our junior faculty and asked who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow and how do we train them and encourage them to see their career as an arc here at Carolina, where they may start out in physics and astronomy teaching and then wind up somehow eventually in a provost desk. And so I really want to focus on that human side of things. And I'll say the same thing about staff. So I really do want to work with you in this forum and to hear from you about the issues affecting staff, because of course we rely entirely upon staff to operate the university, and your matters are academic matters in that sense. So you'll be seeing some initiatives around faculty initially, but I certainly want to pay attention to all of your concerns. So I'm really grateful that you allowed me to come here and say hello today.
Well, thanks for being here, Chris, and congratulations as you start embarking on your new role. I know this is your second day on the job, so we appreciate you being with us today. I guess I'll open it up for questions. Does anyone want to have questions with the new Provost Clemons? Stephanie, your hand's up.
This is actually a question for the Chancellor, so let me know if I should wait. You're
I guess we
muted,
could
Katie.
take questions for both Chancellor Guskiewicz.
Go ahead,
and-
Stephanie. The Provost just ran back to his office, so we'll give him a chance to catch his breath.
Okay. Thank you, Chancellor, for mentioning staff retention. I know that this is very much on your mind because we spent an hour talking about it in Stack on Friday. I wanted to ask about, you kind of alluded to other like irons in the fire or ideas that you were exploring with your team and among kind of other chancellors, in addition to the great like Future of Work program that was just rolled out. I don't know if you can, but if there's any other details you can kind of share about what's in the works or what you're thinking about around retention, that would be great. And again, I know from being in meetings with you and with other folks on your team that this is really top of mind. So if there is any additional details you can share, that would be great.
Sure. So, I often, Stephanie, as you know, point back to our strategic plan, Carolina Next Innovations for Public Good. And as you know, one of those 8 strategic initiatives is around career development. And so, and Becky and others are leading that effort for that initiative. And we are, as I said earlier, we're spending time over the next several months working on what are the key performance indices to know that we're meeting sort of the promise that we put forward to the campus around those initiatives. And under that career development, this is, I've been very clear about this. I believe that this isn't just about the career development of our students here, but this is about the career development of our faculty and our staff. And we have to be able to look at opportunities for upward mobility for our faculty and our staff who are often tapped to go to other universities or other industries. And so Randy Woodson, the Chancellor at NC State, and I have talked at length with leadership at the system office about the ways in which we have to eliminate some of the barriers to that with just promotions from within. As you know, sometimes it's easier to hire someone from the outside into the same position than to promote somebody from within into that same position. And that has to change. And we are committed to working on this with the system office, and President Hans, I believe, is committed to this as well. And so I think you're going to see progress there. I will tell you, as I look at Chris Clemons and Becky Mangini on this screen, we sat here in the South Building for 3 hours yesterday, never left here until it was, I think, some close to 7 maybe, where we, and this is the third of several more budget meetings to happen, but because we have balanced our budget, we have developed a strategic reinvestment fund that's going to allow us to be strategic in the way that we support salary increases for our staff and units around campus. And so we have not been able to do that over the past several years because we have not had a balanced budget, and we've not had the opportunity for discretionary ARP options. And so we're going to be working with school and unit leaders to identify who are those individuals that either have been here and extremely committed and working on campus throughout this, not just those working on campus, but those who have sacrificed and have gotten here because they're front facing. And we want to be sure that we can reward those individuals who we don't want to lose, and we want to be able to move upward into this. So those are just a few options. We will have that opportunity for the first time in quite a while to do that.
Thank you so much. That was great.
So Stephanie, can I ask a question back?
Yeah.
So I'm fond of saying, I used to say this over in physics a lot, that the entire university depends on the goodwill of our staff, because we sure aren't paying them enough to get the amount of work that we see coming out of them. And I feel like that the pandemic strained us in so many ways, and may have even strained that goodwill a little bit on the part of our employees, including faculty, but certainly staff. What would you like to see? What would help in your mind rebuild the goodwill. So Kevin has addressed kind of the budget and the ability to invest in advancement for staff internally and to build career opportunities. But what do you think? What should I be doing? What should I be seeing with respect to staff that I need to know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll say two things, and there are a lot of people in this room who have had a lot of conversations about this. First, I want to thank you for kind of acknowledging that maybe the goodwill has been strained a little bit. I think it was 2 years ago, Keith in an executive committee meeting said that, you know, like our buckets are empty and we're like running on empty, and that was 2 years ago. And so, and when he said that, it really resonated with people, and that was a long time ago.
Yes.
So I can only imagine how empty everyone is feeling now.
It's beyond empty. It's a vacuum, a void.
Like, we don't even have fumes to run on anymore.
Right.
But you know, other than what the chancellor shared around paying people more and career advancement, which both the chancellor and Becky have heard me talk about a lot, I think, you know, to the point that you made about the goodwill of the staff and people running on empty, people have taken on a lot of responsibility for folks who have left, you know, taken on work that is, if you're a manager, you're taking on jobs of 2 or 3 people who have left. If you're not a manager, maybe, you know, you're taking on just random pieces of people's jobs on top of what you're already doing. And so I think finding ways to encourage managers, but also just kind of like a way of operating in general that is really thinking about prioritizing and trade-offs. And if you're asking staff to take on additional work or do something extra, what are we not doing instead? And then also finding ways to pay people for doing that additional work. And I think that will go a long way to both acknowledge all of the additional work that people have been doing. And then, you know, thank yous are great, but compensating that is really important. But like I said, there are tons of brilliant people on this call who have thought about this a lot and talked about it a lot too. So that's my 2 cents that both the chancellor and Becky have heard me share before.
No, I think that does add something, right? What I'm hearing is not just if you're asked to do something extra, be compensated, but can we not build back in some of those missing positions, the support, so that at 5 o'clock, you're not carrying home all of your work into the late evening to make up for the fact that we're understaffed in spots. And, you know, like everybody, there's going to be workforce challenges for the whole nation going out of this pandemic. But I take your point. If you're missing people, somebody is, and you're still doing everything you were doing, somebody is doing that extra work that the missing people are not doing. So.
Great. Matt, you're up next.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. And this sort of ties in with the previous question as well in the previous conversation, but building on the recent mental health summit in November and noting the fact that roughly 75% of the attendees at that summit were staff, Chancellor or Provost, can you please provide any updates on what the university is doing to enhance mental health resources that are available for staff?
Yeah, so Samantha Meltzer-Brody from, she led that alongside Amy Johnson. Samantha is one of the leading experts in mental health issues. She's the chair of psychiatry here at Carolina. And they are, I think, meeting this week, in fact, to roll out a schedule and a plan for next steps. I wish I had a better answer, Matt, to your question, but what I do want you to know is that the staff are very much included in the planning moving forward. And I think that was something that came out of that summit, just by the attendance that was there. And because I think we rely so much on our staff, and they themselves have challenges, but they're often called on to try to help others, to work through these challenges. And so it was very clear, I think, coming out of that summit. It was one of my take-home messages. So I will check back in, and Becky, you may want to jump in. I don't know if you know of anything additional that you might want to add, or Chris, but I think we do need to get something out so that we, shortly after this meeting this week, so that the community knows what the next steps are.
Chancellor, I'm
Oh,
here.
Amy, you're on here. Thank you.
Yes, although, hi, everybody. Hi, Katie. Hi, folks. I'm glad to be with you today. Samantha Meltzer-Brody and I are continuing some work. And as you know, we came and Katie, was it just the last time you met that we presented with the sort of follow-up items from the summit? The time passes quickly. But so we came up with a series of recommendations from that summit that you may remember, which is, again, the summit was a jump start. It was an important jump start and a day-long one to the conversation, but we agreed to have ongoing discussions through what we're calling our mental health summit seminars. We are planning, as a matter of fact, there is a meeting this week where we're planning our February seminar. And we hope to have those every month through the spring term, and then end with a colloquium, which will probably be a little bit shorter than what we did with the summit, a half day or so, where we come back to those three key themes that the Chancellor defined for us: the culture of care, the prevention services, and also the crisis services, and assess how well we have done. But it's important to note that the impetus behind that really came out of some serious issues that were happening, tragedies with our students, and the serious issues that were happening in terms of our ability to meet and support students' needs. And so one of the things that we have encouraged, because I, as the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, address student support and development, is that we need to continue to talk with our colleagues. And Becky may have some additional pieces that she wants to address in terms of what we're doing specifically for faculty and staff. Those conversations will be open, as the summit was, to the entire campus community. But in terms of interventions and resources, of course, for faculty and staff, that is not my specific wheelhouse, and I want to defer to my colleagues so I don't talk out of turn. So Becky, I don't know if you have other pieces that you want to mention.
Before Becky jumps in, Amy, coming out of your meeting on Friday, I think is there a place where these where the programming is advertised, and that we can be sure that the employee forum has the link to that?
Yes. So again, one of the things that you may remember is that we talked about creating a central hub, a website resource that was going to be a physical sort of extension of our Heals Care Network. And so we're going to use the Heals Care Network as a primary sort of hub for all of this information. We will be shouting from the rooftops about these events. So don't worry, it'll probably be a matter of you getting the message too many times, but we will absolutely make sure that we keep in touch with the forum, our faculty council, our student governments, and use them as conduits to get the word out as well. So yes, rest assured that you will get these messages, and we will also have this information and a wide array of other information regarding resources for the campus community on the Heals Care Network website, which we're hoping to launch by the end of this week. A soft launch, so it will not be highly public, but it would be great if we could send out, once we have that link available, if we could send it out to this group, and also, like I presented to the Chancellor's Student Advisory Council, have you check things out, let us know what you think of it. Are there missing pieces? Is stuff not working? Sort of try to break things. That's the value of a soft launch. So if we could lean on this group to do that too, that would be fantastic.
And
Great.
Amy, I'll add to that a handful of folks did receive a link to the soft launch of the staff section of the Heals Care Hub, and I put props in the chat for that because it's looking great so far, and we've already provided some tips. But yes, I'm glad to share if we want to do a wider kind of soft launch with the employee forum to get some more valuable feedback on building out that staff section, because it is a great already start on kind of providing those tools and resources in the wellness and mental health space. So thank you for doing that. That's very, very much appreciated.
And then one last thing, and I know we were going to turn to Becky, but as of yesterday, February 1st, we are now officially a JED Foundation recognized institution, university. And Amy, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about what that actually means for us, but I think there will be a lot of opportunity for benchmarking to learn from others, correct?
Sure. So yes, as of February 1st, we are signing on. We have signed on. We're still waiting to get the signed sort of version back from JED. We've signed it. We're waiting for them to sign it. But in any event, we're signing on as a JED campus. The JED Foundation, as you may know, is a national foundation that is focused on the prevention, intervention, and postvention of suicide for students. So again, our JED campus relationship has a very student-focused flavor. But certainly, you know, that's the work that all of us do. I just want to be very mindful and respectful of the fact that you all have said we want resources for us, in addition to allowing us to do our work well and help support students. So, but yes, indeed, that is effective as of yesterday, and there will be more coming. Again, Samantha Meltzer-Brody, who is my colleague who co-chaired the summit with me, she and I are leading our advisory group for that, which will be pulling together a lot of data for our consulting that we do with JED about the resources we offer on campus, helping to frame the Healthy Minds survey that we get access to as a part of that. So there will be a number of steps to that program as well. And thank you, Chancellor, for mentioning it. Yes, that is live and up and running as of February 1.
Thank you.
And I'll just jump in really quickly on some of the employee resources. I mean, some of this you've heard me talk about before. I also think, you know, as Amy talked about, the summit was really focused on some specific terrible events with our students, and really focused to some extent on direct intervention and some of the more mental illness and mental health tools. But when we talk about mental well-being among employees, we know there are lots of facets, and that doesn't mean just that people are looking for therapy or counseling, but rather people's mental well-being is impacted by a number of things. So we've been trying to talk about what we have in play and then where we might build that out, recognizing that an employer has some limitations in how they do this for employees. And particularly when we try to compare ourselves to what we do for students, they are paying fees that are sort of built in to manage some of these things. Many of them are living here. So we have different responsibilities for students than whether you say responsibilities or sort of just different expectations for students than we do for employees. But we also have employees are provided benefits and leave in a different structure than students are. So I think it's important to sort of lay that out. Some of the things that we have in play, some are more well used, others are not, but some of the things that are in play is the employee assistance program. We've heard that there have been some challenges there. We're trying to address those. We've heard better results more recently. The system is working on a telehealth program that they can distribute for employees across the system. And part of the delay on that is they're trying to tie it to the state health plan. So there could be an ongoing referral service for longer term pieces. I don't have an update on exactly where that is, but I'll get one and refer back to this group. But I know that that was the last hurdle that they were sort of navigating on that. Employees do earn leave. And I know sometimes people are like, yeah, but I can't take the leave because it's so hard for me to be away from the office. That's a real challenge. And one of the things that's sort of related to mental well-being, but we don't talk about it in the same way because it's not a direct intervention, is now that the temporary suspension is lifted and the freeze is lifted, we're opening up the lines to hire more people. We're trying to decrease the barriers to get those positions posted and people hired more quickly. We also, as Kevin mentioned, are working on, we've got 2 state issued pay increases, one that came in December, another that's coming in July, and then we have some discretionary money. There are more limitations on the discretionary money and they can't be broadly applied to everybody, but that is another tool in our toolbox that we think will impact the mental well-being of people as they feel like their work is appreciated and they have a little bit more resource. But hopefully with being able to hire more people, give people a better compensation for their work they're doing, and manage our budget differently, there's also a capacity for people to feel like they can take the leave they earn. So this is sort of the long view to getting at mental well-being that doesn't show up in the same sort of conversation as counseling and mental health services. Jessica, who you'll hear from in a little bit, continues to consolidate resources. There's been a real emphasis on mental well-being. She's been trying to do that. She's one person, but again, if you all have suggestions of things that we could or should do, there's more there. This year, we're going to combine the employee appreciation and the wellness fair in a combined event. Jessica can talk about that, but there is some focus on mental well-being. We're also going to try to leverage, and Kevin and Chris are on the call, so we can maybe even talk about this a little bit, leverage the mental health and well-being days for students into a no meeting day for staff. We are not authorized to give people the day off. Faculty do not have the day off. They just don't teach, but they still are expected to do their work. But we could declare it a no meeting day. Now, that doesn't mean no meetings will happen, but the idea is that we want to give people the opportunity to catch up, catch their breath, build their mental well-being to be able to continue in their work. And I think we're prepared to have to make that declaration across campus. One of the things that Kevin didn't mention, but also has been part of our budget discussions, is we did find resources to extend the mental health first aid courses. So we know those are resources not just for employees, but also for employees who are on the front lines dealing with students or other employees who may have mental health issues. So it's a long list of things. Some are the short game, some are the long game. Not all of them are as well used, and there are some weaknesses in some of them, but I do think we're trying to build out a complement of things to support the well-being of employees, and we'll continue to work on that and need your help in doing so, and particularly your ideas moving forward.
Thanks, Becky. And just to clarify, I just want to make sure, is the no meetings day kind of situation going to be applied to the employee appreciation day event, but also the mental health wellness day that students are getting? Is that both, or?
I think it's going to be for the mental health day. I don't know that we'll make the employee appreciation day a no meetings day, because oftentimes people come for a portion and then go back to work. But we will ask supervisors to afford their employees the opportunity to participate.
Great, thank you. Phil, you're up next.
Yeah, I just had a really circling back to Stephanie's comment from earlier around staff taking on additional responsibilities and piggybacking onto what Becky said about being able to hire more staff. I'm under the impression that there are some units on campus, some more than others, who have relied upon temporary employees to sort of fill this gap as well. And now we're at a point where maybe there's a reason to reconsider, like, people who are doing core work of the university, thinking about the number of temporary employees that we have relative to those who are full-time appointments. I think that job classification is another piece of this, being able to hire more people, but being able to hire more people as permanent employees versus just trying to get along with temporary staff, or to hire a bunch of graduate students on an hourly basis to do something that's really a core function of a unit. So I just wanted to toss that out there to connect some of those threads that I'd heard.
Thank you. And Becky has brought that point to us as we're going through these budget discussions.
Great. Michael, you're up next. No?
Yes, just to connect into a lot of those same topics. I work in ITS. I have in the past specifically been invited to apply for promotions into supervisory positions, things like that, and turned it down when I was told, if you are selected, you will keep having to do your current job and your new job, and we don't have a plan for backfilling your old job. And so there are people in at least my division who are turning down opportunities because there is no plan in place to create entry-level positions or analyst positions or anything like that to take the work off of them that they would need to set aside in order to really invest themselves in a new position. People are ending up becoming their own bottlenecks in their career paths because we don't have the ability to create entry-level positions, and it feels like a total unwillingness to create entry-level positions.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I want to go back to something Becky just mentioned about the no meetings days. I was talking to a colleague who works in student services, and I was asking, how we can make the well-being or wellness days work for staff. And something she shared, which I haven't experienced and hadn't occurred to me before, was that often when students have like mental health days or days where classes are canceled, that's sometimes when they turn to their like housekeeping stuff. So for her experience of this, of the well-being or, you know, wellness days for students is that her meetings skyrocket and she is on the receiving end of a ton of emails and requests from students. And so it's actually a ton more work for her. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's the same for me, but as someone who supports faculty and administrators, I think that's also a time where they kind of look to stuff that's been put on the back burner. So I've also often felt that it's just the volume of work increases. So I think the no meeting days are great. I really think that'll work. I just want to emphasize the importance to communicate that to the whole university so we manage expectations across the board. So just wanted to share that.
Agreed. Thanks, Stephanie. Sarah.
I dropped this in the chat, so apologies if it's been addressed elsewhere. When Becky was bringing up important points about you know, staff, supporting staff through loss and things like that, something that I've personally been affected by, but I know colleagues have as well, is that we don't have any bereavement leave, and I know that's probably above, you know, just the UNC campus. And I was just curious, is that coming from UNC system? Is that a state requirement? I'm just curious where that's coming from. As someone who unfortunately has experienced a lot of loss, I've had to dig pretty deep into my sick leave and vacation, and just curious where I should be advocating.
Becky, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I believe it's a system level, like state benefit that would have to be created. Is that correct, Becky?
That's my understanding. Link, you may actually have a better read on that, but I think part of it is system and part of it is state.
No, actually, it's all state. All the leave types are basically grounded in legislation. So any new leave type that gets created would have to come from the legislature first, then to the State Personnel Commission, and then be rolled out to the state agencies and universities. And sick leave is designed to be used for that purpose. It's one of the many things that it can be used for. So I think the state's view is that there is bereavement leave. It's just called sick leave. So.
Great. Leah.
I have a question about one of the things in the chat too. So sorry to interrupt, Leah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I saw one go by that was actually an important tool when I was a manager in physics, which is the ability to buy bagels and coffee or some using trust or other funds. Are we still in a lockdown on that, and do we know when that might change for those who are here, so that managers or department chairs would be able to do that? That's a question for Becky or Kevin, because it's only my second day.
From my understanding, in the law school, we aren't allowed to purchase food for staff. So I think it's still in place.
I think it's the account type that you're using is the issue about, you know, whether it's something on trust funds versus.
Then we have for a while in the pandemic, we were not doing it at all, partly because no one was here, but also just because the funds, we were uncertain about the use of funds for that for a while. I'm just curious where it stands.
Yeah, there's both a fund type and under the state guidelines, generally, if you read them and the way other state agencies interpret them, and this is one of the challenges we've faced, our interpretation has been looser in the past in that we allowed people to use non-state funds to purchase food. If you read the state guidelines, it's my understanding is it shouldn't matter the fund source. We're not in the business of buying food and feeding folks. That's not in the intention. Now, obviously our work differs from that of the Department of Transportation, but it's a tough line to know what is the appropriate amount of non-state dollars we should be using to support food, other sorts of things. It's the same reason you can't buy gift cards with resources, that sort of thing. So I believe it's been loosened some, but there was a discussion last I heard, and I'm sort of jumping into the finance space, and it's admittedly not mine, but there had been a request for some guidance on what would be appropriate if we want to do things. Taking your whole unit out to lunch at Tandem on foundation funds, maybe not. Maybe ordering Panera once a year, maybe yes, but like, what is the appropriate guidance? Most people don't want to break the rules, but they want to know if we want to do something, what is the right boundary for doing so? And I can check in with finance to see where that stands.
Yeah, so Becky, I'd like to just make an equity argument for something, and maybe you can take this to them for part of the clarification. So in physics, we used to have at holiday time in December, a potluck. And so it didn't cost any money for people to bring food. But we also saw that grad students who couldn't really, were not in a position to cook and bring food, would often select out. They felt bad to, we'd tell them come anyway, but they couldn't bring anything, and so they wouldn't come. And then of course the staff are having to clean this up after. It's not in anybody's job description to clean up after a potluck. So I said, to be equitable, we're going to have a catered Christmas or holiday event. And then everybody came, and it was much more pleasant because you didn't lose your afternoon to washing dishes and so forth. But if we can't do that, then I feel like we'll have to go back to something that doesn't really equitably treat all of the folks who might participate. So just a point. And sorry to interrupt the questions. I have my own. So.
No, we appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. Leah, your hand's up.
Yes, I just wanted to communicate something that's a huge stressor from some of my constituents that I represent, which is the rising cost of living, especially in terms of affordable housing. I'm hearing a lot of staff, I represent SHRA employees here, particularly in the libraries. And it's just, they're having a hard time, maintaining a long-term, stable, affordable house. And I think, if you want to talk about mental health, I think you really have to begin there. Like, you have to make sure that people's basic living expenses are covered. And I think a lot of wages here on campus, fall far short of that. So I just want to know if that's something that's on administration's mind. What can the university do locally to help address some of those issues? And as much as we'd like to be appreciative and grateful for the, the 5% increase we just got from the legislature, the fact that we were passed over for raises in the previous budget cycle, I mean, that really just averages out to a 1% increase, per year, and inflation, is more like 7%. And then the cost of housing, particularly in the Triangle region, is just out the roof. So this is something, I don't know if the university has a way to maybe offer some kind of cost of living adjustment on top of what we get from the state, sort of similar in the way that local school systems can supplement, the teachers' salaries a bit. I know their funding is different. They get funding from the county or the city. But yeah, what can leadership do? Yeah. What can the university do on top of?
Yeah, so Leah, this is a really important question, and one that I have had several conversations over the past 18 months with local community leaders, the mayor, town council. We have engaged a consultant who is looking at this in terms of affordable housing in Chapel Hill. One of the things we know is that, the university is the largest employer here in Orange County, but yet 60% of our employees are driving outside the county, from outside the county to come to work, and then driving outside the county to go home. My bet is that if we took a poll on this Zoom call, that it would probably fall into that range. And that we have to try to find a way to fix. We are engaging this consultant where they're beginning to look at properties around the university, property that the university owns, what might be done in terms of creating more affordable housing. I realize that's different than a cost of living adjustment that you're describing, which I think, I don't know where, how that would work. But I can tell you that we are looking seriously at affordable housing and trying to reduce that. There's the ratio of single family homes to the jobs available in the Chapel Hill zip codes. That ratio is far too high. It's you don't want that ratio to be more than about 1.5 jobs for every one single family housing unit available, and it's much higher than that right now, and 2.7 in fact, that ratio. So we have to do something about this, and I'm committed to continuing the conversations. And I'm taking notes here too, and I'll look to see if there are peer institutions that have found ways to build in cost of living adjustments.
Thanks, Kevin. And I know we're running short on time, but I'll give time one final question. Randall, your hand is up.
Thank you. I've heard people raise concerns about, doing multiple jobs and not being able to take leave, use their PTO. And I think one thing that would go a long way, and I don't know if this may have already been discussed, but there are many organizations, including UNC Health, that offer a PTO sellback. So if somebody can't use their PTO and are losing it to sick leave and so forth, there is an option, in a lot of employers to sell back the PTO. Is that under discussion? Will that be a possibility for university employees? I think that's one relatively simple thing that could go a long, long way for a lot of people.
That's not something that we have local authority to determine, but it's certainly something that we can pass back to the system to see whether that would be an option that we could consider. But we don't have the authority locally to just put it in play. I'm happy to pass it along though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So again, thank you to Chancellor Guskiewicz and our new Provost Clemons for being here today and answering questions. We will look forward to welcoming you back to future roundtables at our full body meetings. So thank you as always for your feedback and answering our
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm happy to come anytime and
Excellent.
happy to have your emails or even drop by South Building, say hello. Not all.
We'll have to come by and audit your course. I got a little chat message, so we'll have to come by and check.
Yeah, you're
that.
welcome. 905 125 Chapman. I actually have a couple people sitting in. So.
Oh, great. Excellent. All right. So next up is our traditional HR update from Becky and her team. Becky, take it away.
Thank you, everybody. And I think you've heard a fair amount from me this morning, so I'll try to keep my updates relatively brief. The Chancellor gave a fair update on COVID. I just wanted to give a couple of additional pieces. We're delighted to see that the numbers seem to be declining. And I want to thank all of you for your diligence in ensuring that we are masked up and protected across campus. It's good that we're seeing the numbers go down. Many of you should have seen the notices go out. We are asking people to upload their notice of boosters into the system. If you do go ahead and upload your vaccination card with the recognition of boosters, you are entered in a drawing that includes a number of options, and I believe basketball tickets are included in the mix, but we are trying to track boosters, and our public health experts continue to tell us that our best protection moving forward is the wearing of masks and the having vaccines and boosters. So if you haven't done so and need a booster, those are available on campus, and we also do provide time for people to get those. We've gotten a couple of questions related to the federal mandate, which you'll recall was an expectation that all employees. Oh, okay. The vaccine mandate, as many of you know, the communications have really been directed only at those who are noted in the system as not having received the vaccine. So there hasn't been as much broad-based communication, but the mandates are under review in the federal courts. And so they're stayed at this point in time. The expected implementation deadline was the 18th of January. Because of the stay in the courts, we are not enforcing that. We continue to wait. That said, for all the reasons I just talked about, we're encouraging people to get vaccinated. We're encouraging people to be boosted. If in fact the stay is lifted and this is enforced, we expect that the requirement would be both for vaccination and boosters. And then if people are not vaccinated and boosted, we would go through the appropriate process that will be informed both by the federal government and by the system office for disciplinary action. We don't know what that looks like right now, but early guidance suggests it would at least be a 4-part process. And the federal mandate as written suggests that testing is not a viable alternative. And so if the expectation is you have to be vaccinated and testing is not a viable alternative, it would seem that some sort of discipline, which could lead to, but we don't yet know, could lead to termination, would be included in that. At this stage in the game, we don't know what that looks like. Nobody has been terminated for failure to vaccine, and we're not in the place to do that right now. I just want to be very clear. Those are my COVID updates. The Chancellor referenced that as part of this year's ARP, there was a one-time bonus, which you all should have received in December. Were you eligible? A 2.5% base increase, which you should have received in your January paycheck. Were you eligible? And we then, as a campus, had the authority to do a discretionary increase. We have to self-fund as a campus. As the Chancellor noted, we are trying to identify some central funds. Units are also being asked to contribute. Units have been asked to make recommendations as part of their budget process, and those payments, should they be approved, will happen in March. And then the next 2.5% increase we anticipate would happen in July. So I think I've said it before, we're trying to make sure your paycheck looks different every month, but ideally it's going up every month. But there's a lot of changes happening along the way. As a reminder, you also should have received a notice. January's paychecks also were the first draw of the new benefit year, and we're reminding everybody to take a look at their paychecks to ensure that the benefit draws look accurate to you based on the benefit selections you made as part of open enrollment. My last update is just giving you all a heads up. Every year, or every other year, it has been, the system office has done a full-scale engagement survey. That has been delayed because of COVID, and they have proposed doing a pulse survey, which is quite a bit shorter than the usual survey, but then adding a number of COVID-related questions to it. We do anticipate that that is going to take place in that structure and be delivered to campus in March. There's nothing for you to do now, mostly just giving you a heads up. It's a standard survey that's given across the system, so it's not unique to Chapel Hill. We will translate the survey as we have in the past for our non-English speaking employees, and we'll make sure that it's broadly available to people and they know about it when it's coming out. But I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we're looking at receiving that in March, assuming those dates stand from the system office. We'll give you more update. I think that's all I've got. Link, I'll let you chime in if you have anything. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Jessica.
I think you covered it.
All right.
Thanks, Becky.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I wanted to start off just by letting you know what we have coming up in February. So we do try to offer as many mental health, mental well-being topics as we can when it comes to our Wellness Wednesdays. So we're kicking off our month next week with the topic being loving you, boosting your self-esteem and acceptance. That is on the 9th. And the following week on the 16th, we have a session on gratitude, a skill for happier living. I encourage you to check that out. It's a simple thing that you can add to your daily life to improve your mental health and outlook on life. And then on the 23rd, we have a topic on unconscious bias, also very important. Just a reminder, these are always at noon. They're always 45 to 60 minutes. And they're always on our calendar on the HR website. Just to recap, participation in January, we had 43 people attend our Wellness Wednesdays in January. So participation is getting a little lower. So I do encourage you to share this information. These sessions have been in the WorkWell newsletter. If you scroll down to that wellness section, they're promoted there. They're promoted with our wellness champions. And I'm hoping that you get the word out as well. Something else that you may or may not be aware of, but there is a mindful UNC community. And if you've not signed up for it, the website is mindfulunc.web.unc.edu. And the first Monday of every month, they have a very brief meditation session. And so the first Monday is next week on the 7th. It's at 8:30 to kick off the week. And the topic is relaxation and heart-centered meditation with Minu Tiwari. She presented with our virtual sessions last year. She is fabulous. So I encourage you to check out their website, sign up to be part of their community so you get all their notifications on what they have going on. But the first Monday of every month, early in the morning at 8:30, to kick you off and have a great week, is that 15-minute meditation session. So very, very brief, and hopefully you can fit it into your day. Also in Workwell that will be coming out later this month, we're highlighting an article on Be a Maker, commonly referred to as BEAM or BAM. I could be saying it wrong, but if you're not familiar with it, the goal is to drive innovation, but also attract hobbyists that, you know, maybe aren't experts, maybe don't have all the tools they need to take something on at their own private residence, but the spaces offer tools and cutting edge equipment such as 3D printers, laser and vinyl cutters, embroidery machines, sewing machines, a wood shop, and much, much more. So if you're interested in picking up a hobby, I encourage you to check out the Beam spaces. Picking up a hobby and, you know, just getting together, you pick up a passion project, it helps reduce stress and improve your mental health. It helps with that work-life balance. The hours vary, and it's not just during the workday. They have evening hours and weekend hours. So I encourage you to go to their website and check that out. And we're promoting the Beam 101 training session in the Workwell that's coming out shortly. And then for more traditional stuff, we're in February already, so 1 month completed. Happy February. It is American Heart Month. So I just say a little something about this month at every February meeting, and that heart disease, despite everything going on, it is still the #1 cause of death in the US. And it is taking the life of someone every 36 seconds. So very serious, and heart disease can start at any age. With things just as simple as high blood pressure, which many people have to manage. So this Friday, February 4th, is National Wear Red Day. There will be an article in Workwell coming out to give you a little bit more pointers on how to prevent heart disease at any age. So you can kind of look up your age and see what you should be doing exactly. And I encourage you to take action. Wear red this Friday. Whether you're in the office or not, to increase awareness about heart disease, and take a selfie, or if you're on a Zoom meeting, take a screenshot and post that on social media at Total Wellbeing UNC, or just UNC, or Wear Red Day. So thank you guys in advance for doing that. I know red might not be some of our favorite colors. We tend to like a particular shade of blue. And then Helping Heals registration is still up. We've historically had about 100 or more people, including students, employees, UNC affiliates, sign up to be a Helping Heal each semester. Currently, we're at 41. So if you want to help get the word out, we're looking to expand our list. And this is our list of resources of affiliates that help with childcare, pet care, and senior care, even if it's just companionship. It doesn't need to be medical care. And then Becky had mentioned earlier, we are combining our Wellness Expo and Employee Appreciation Day. So save the date on your calendar. That is Friday, March 18th. The in-person session will be primarily 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be at the Carolina Union, usually where everybody gathers for that big Employee Appreciation Day. And the things that we'll have on site include a space for meditation and relaxation, wellness checks to get a quick biometric screening. You can get your numbers in just 15 minutes. There will be a small exhibit hall, appropriately spaced out for comfort level in the Great Hall, so it won't be as large as previous events, but we will have an exhibit hall. And in there will be a medicine drop. If you have any unused or expired medication, we encourage you to bring it and drop it off safely at the exhibit hall. We'll have our cooking demonstrations, we'll have fitness demonstrations and games, and we will be providing boxed lunches. So For everyone's safety, everything will be individually wrapped and there will be a few choices to choose from. And we'll be offering the breakfast for shift workers as well, with a hot breakfast option. So I encourage you to get the word out about that date. If you're not on campus on Friday, because some of us do participate in a hybrid schedule, maybe flex your schedule a little bit so you can be here for that event, but it is Friday the 18th. And then leading up to the 18th, we're going to have a few virtual opportunities each day, Monday through Thursday, so you can participate in fitness activities and education sessions that way. And then for your discounts and ways to save this month, if you want to drop any hints for anybody who might be looking to purchase flowers or any other gifts this month, you can save 35% through your Working Advantage membership, which is your free employee discount membership, with our company code, which is on our website, and I'll share it with you. Fitness discounts are really picking up. Want to remind you of your resources right here on campus. You can participate in campus recreation and use all their equipment and classes for a super low fee of $12.50 a month for employees. Or if you just want to do group classes and no equipment, it's $40 a semester. And then there are two opportunities, one called Active and Fit if you're looking for a gym off campus, and that's $29 a month through Working Advantage, and Fitness Your Way, also $29 a month through Blue 365. And that one gives you a discount off of well-being specialists like chiropractors, acupuncture, massage therapists, and more. So I do encourage you to check those out. And then when I spoke with you last month, I was working on a discount with Camp Gladiator. This is an outside, in-person, or virtual opportunities that they offer. As a UNC employee, you can participate in a week for absolutely no cost at all. If you love it and want to sign up for a membership, whether it be on a month-to-month basis or a 2-year commitment, you get 20% off of your membership. And if you have your spouse join, they will save as well. So I encourage you to check that out. That's on our HR website under perks and discounts. Questions for me?
Questions for Jessica or Becky or Lake? Kira, your hand's been up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Becky, actually. Sorry, I know I put my hand up forever ago, but I didn't want to forget. So just to go back to COVID, I received an email from a colleague asking if there's been any discussion or evaluation of having UNC COVID testing facilities also support faculty and staff's immediate families. This individual has been hearing about how difficult it is for spouses, partners, kids to get necessary testing, and that it's been impacting staff's ability to get back to working, in the ways that we're being asked. So I just wonder if there's any conversation. This person was suggesting, even if it's just like a small fee, if money is an object of concern, but I'm just curious if that's been a point of conversation.
It's a great question. I know it was a conversation early on, but we were having some difficulty maintaining the staffing and support for our existing labs for the people we need to directly service. And at that point in time, there were a number of other resources for testing. I also know that the testing implications associated with Omicron are quite a bit different, and that's part of the reason that they're not having people come in for asymptomatic testing. We've eliminated asymptomatic testing, and then that if you feel symptoms, you should just stay home or take a home test and not necessarily seek out testing, and that we're not requiring a test to return, but rather you need to wait until you're 5 days post symptoms to return, because the efficacy of the testing structure looks different with Omicron. All of that is to say there were lots of discussions. I don't believe there was we ever got to the place where we had the capacity to open it up to families, nor do I think we're in that place now. That said, I'll throw this comment back to see if if there is a time at which that could be reevaluated. and whether there are, I mean, I don't believe there was ever a discussion about it being about dollars. It was about staffing capacity and testing capacity, whether we had the tests available and the staff to do them for the groups that we had said we were going to serve. But I'll throw it back and see what I can find out.
Yeah, all that makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate you taking that.
Thanks. Matt, you have a question?
Yeah, good morning, Becky. So this is from our Personnel Issues Committee. I understand there have been some discretionary funds available for merit raises. Is that correct? And if so, can you please clarify who is eligible for the raises, the criteria and approval process for the raises, and the timeline for distributing funds?
Yeah, that's the thing I just talked about a few minutes ago. So the ARP and the timeline for distributing those is March. The requirements vary, and that's the guidance that came from the state and the system. For SHRA employees, it can only be market rate or equity increases. For EHRA, it is merit-based. Anybody who has gotten a meets or exceeds is eligible. But these are campus-based funding. There is no state funding to come with them. They cannot be applied across the board. And the campus has designated an effort to address equity and compression areas, and those most likely the biggest areas of market impact, or areas of those they most want to retain as their priorities. And it will all depend on what units have to fund and then what the center is able to complement.
Great, thank you.
Can I just ask one follow-up question on that? When you say market rate, and this just may be me confusing the terms, but is that like the like UNC like market rate in our pay bands, or is that like the real world market rate for, like, for example, like IT careers?
No, these are within the bands that the system provides,
So
or the state and the system provides.
Okay, so like if someone's earning below their market rate for their like pay band and like I forget the level they're at, then that's like the market rate we're talking about.
Yeah, so you could do market adjustments and equity adjustments if there's equity, I mean, if there's concerns there. Now, that doesn't mean they're required to do them. It just means that if they have funds, that those are the areas of priority. And Link, you can chime in if I'm stating these with the wrong terms, but
you're stating it right. And
okay.
Stephanie, I think if I understand your comment, yes, that's exactly what it's referring to. So for example, for each of the pay bands in the SHRA career banding system, there's a contributing journey and advanced market rate. And depending on how that position is classified, let's say if it's a journey level position, and that individual's salary is below the journey market rate, then a market adjustment could be made for that. However, if they are already at market or above market, then that would not be a reason that could be used.
That was exactly what I was referring to, and I could not remember the names of like journey and advanced. This might be, well, I know this is a bigger question and I don't know where we are on time, but do you have any information on when those are going to be like updated? Because I think that's like those are 2018 rates, right? And
right.
So is there any?
Yeah, what we've heard so far is they're not going to be adjusted, at least in the near term. We continue to ask about that because of all the reasons you've just stated. But unfortunately, the answer we continue to get is that there's no plans to adjust the rates at this time.
Thanks, Link. Is that, sorry, I just keep adding on questions, but is that because we're also looking at a new possible like compensation, like model career band change? Is it tied to that?
I believe so, because typically the way the approval to get the bands changed, local campuses petition, of course, to the system office and the Office of State Human Resources, but the Office of State Human Resources is ultimately the authority to grant permission to adjust the ranges. And I think they're thinking maybe in line with what you're talking about, is that they've implemented a new class and comp system across all the state agencies. And I think longer term, they're looking for the system, UNC system, to move into that. So it has become quite transparently much more difficult to get them on board with adjusting the ranges, even though it's desperately needed.
Great, thanks. Shane, you have your hand up.
Hi, Becky, this follows up with kind of what you said. Just to clear up some terminology, you said it's up to units to determine how this allocated money might be so they can fund it. What exactly is a unit? Like, is my department a unit, or is the College of Arts and Science? Oh, well, I raised two hands now. Sorry. The College of Arts and Science.
You're proud of your question. I like the clapping. Yes. Yay! It's a fair question. So departments, so the college would give guidance to the departments about making their requests. And I believe that's the way it's happened. And then that rolls back up to the college, and the college submits their request to the center. But it in the same way, everything we do, we send the request out to the larger college, and then they roll it down and bring it back up.
Okay. Okay. So necessarily physics doesn't have to find some money in a cupboard to accomplish that. And then
no, I believe the
goes on
college
down.
is looking at it from the center.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one.
But if
final
physics
thing.
has money in the closet, let me know, because we need it in HR.
One
I'll see
final
what I can find.
clarification for me on the increases, the discretionary increases. So while SHRA, it's not merit-based, the market rate increases or the equity increases, you still have to have meeting expectations or exceeding expectations to be eligible for those types of increases, correct?
That is correct. Yes. And you can't be under any disciplinary action.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And you can't have already exceeded thresholds. This is for everybody. If you've already met your increased threshold for the year, you're not eligible for a discretionary ARP. So if you
Probably
got a
not
promotion
super-
mid-year and it took you too high, then you're not eligible.
Yeah, probably not super likely since we just got out of the freeze, but
right.
Okay, great. Any final questions for HR? Thank you, Becky, Link, Jessica,
Thanks,
for all
y'all.
of your updates. Jessica, I'll echo something in the chat. Terry said that we always appreciate these updates, and it is very appreciated. In the spirit of wellness, let's take a minute or so to stretch and decompress before we move to the next agenda item. So just take a few minutes, get up, stretch, yawn if you need to. I don't know if everybody's had their coffee yet.
Katie, while we're stretching, I would like to point out that Punxsutawney Phil has seen his shadow.
Yes, we did a little bit of
So,
show and tell this morning where we shared the video, if you guys missed it.
So that means 6 more weeks of winter, which brings me great joy. So whoever said boo in the chat, it is no boo. We're going to embrace this.
Embrace the winter.
And pray for like 18 inches of snow.
He's hoping for a condition 3, I believe, in our inclement weather policy, which, you know, we never see, but he will be the first one to ask. I am certain.
I mean,
is this going to be a condition 3? Is this going to be a condition 3?
Although I did I did
like-
see an article in the DTH or yesterday talking about the snowstorm of 2000, and students were sledding down the Dean Dome Hill, and I was like, that looks super dangerous, but oh my god, so fun. So the only time I'd be wishing for 18 inches of snow is if we could have like a stab snow day outside. So
Well, Becky forgets that I went to grad school in Cleveland and Syracuse. So like 18 inches, I can still get to work. I'm good.
oh goodness. All right, y'all. Well, thank you. We're back to our agenda. Next up is the consent agenda. Matt sent out the January meeting minutes separately, so I hope y'all have had a chance to review those. Is there anyone that wants to pull their committee reports from the consent agenda so we can talk through those?
Staff assembly, but it'd be very brief.
Okay, we're pulling staff assembly. Any other committee reports that we want to chat through? Okay, great. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Arlene. I move to approve the consent agenda.
This is Laura, and I second.
Great. All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the consent agenda passes. Staff assembly update. Shayna, do you want to chat to us about staff assembly?
Sure. I just want to let everyone know that one of the identified goals of this year for the staff assembly is dealing with staff salaries in general. So salary compression, salary equity, lack of salary, all of the above. And the best way I feel we can do that is to start a resolution at this level and bring it to the system level. We've had pretty good luck at doing that. So just putting that on your radar, if anybody wants to start talking about why they haven't updated the career bands since 2018, and how long we might still be in this space where we're not in that new career classification system yet, that's an opportunity to do so. It can be a simple resolution like this needs to happen. Love the employee forum. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. And the full body meeting is March 14th and 15th. So that's a good opportunity to start this conversation. Thanks for letting me share that.
Great, thanks, Shayna. I don't know if Personal Issues Committee wants to chime in on possible resolutions or proclamations or whatever format we want those to take.
I'll chime in. This was well timed because Shayna, Matt, Katie, and I were all on an email, and Keith. I'll just say that obviously this is something that we hear about and talk about all the time. And one suggestion I threw out there was maybe hearing from the folks in classification and compensation, because while, and this is just for me personally, while this is something I hear about from people a lot, it's actually not something I won't say I fully understand, but I don't know where like the administration is on this. I mean, I know they're concerned, but I want to understand like in detail, you know, who's most effective. I'm sure there are career areas that are feeling this more than others, or, you know, is someone that's been here for 10 years, like in like an infinitely worse position than someone that's been here from 5? Like, is there a point where it doesn't even make sense to stay Carolina because of the, like all of these compensation problems? So, you know, this is on our radar. I have a lot of specific questions around this. The suggestion I threw out to Katie was either having a presentation at executive committee or maybe asking someone from that team to talk to the full forum, just so we can understand where, you know, what they're thinking about in terms of this, and generate kind of, as much as I love Shayna's idea for a very short 1-sentence resolution, I don't think that will fly. So in the vein of making a maybe slightly longer, more detailed resolution, I think we need a little bit more information, or at least I do personally.
I definitely agree, Stephanie, and I agree. We should probably invite you. You've suggested Adam Beck from Class and Comp to come talk to us. We can invite him to the next executive committee meeting. I'll say this to the full body though, anyone is welcome to come to the executive committee meetings. They're not closed to the executive board. So if you're interested in attending, please reach out. We still have to invite Adam, obviously, to see if he's available to attend I think it's February 15th. Stephanie, if you want to just craft a couple of sentences of like what we wanted to come talk about, we can have Matt send him an official invite.
Yeah, and I'll say the backup is if the 15th doesn't work for him, Matt and I suggested he could come talk to personnel issues, and those meetings are also open to everyone. So I will share the meeting details if that happens.
And also, can I add one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to invite Adriani back to the staff assembly to share the calendar. So Adriani, if you're willing to do that, I would love to have you come back and do that. I think that's a great initiative, and we should keep talking about that. I think you're muted.
Okay.
Hello. You're talking about the holiday calendar that was referred to earlier when Leah was speaking.
Correct.
Okay, sure, yeah.
All right, I will send you an invite for the March chairs meeting.
And Adriani, I know on the holiday front, we had mentioned wanting to work with HR and their team on developing kind of a one pager or kind of a how-to in terms of for TIM administrators to know how to code things. So it makes it a little bit more of an accessible process. I don't know if you wanted to kind of take the lead in terms of the alternative holidays group of the personnel issues or DEI committee, sorry, to, start some conversations around that space. And maybe we could come up with a resource that we could also share with the staff assembly level.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be different at each institution, but we could say this is something we developed for our institution if you wanted to develop something similar.
Right, something that addresses not only the alternative holidays issues that we're having in the coding, but also, here are the holidays and this is what you could do. Yeah, that's a great idea. And the other thing that we did talk about was that we would bring it up at the next VC meeting so that I could have a real understanding from Becky about, what's the best way to move forward on this with connecting with HR, because, we do want to partner with HR and it's not all on them. We just want to make it easy for everybody so that we have a happy campus.
Yeah, agreed. And the good segue there. The next Vice Chancellor Representatives meeting is February 10th at 10 a.m. Matt sent out an invite to submit questions to that. So Adriani, feel free to submit your question. I think those are due by tomorrow. I can't remember what time, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, 10 a.m. Is that right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think I did already.
Okay, good. I don't know. I haven't seen what's been submitted yet. Yeah. So if anyone else has things to submit, any questions to ask at the next VC meeting, make sure you get in. Yes, 10 a.m. Tomorrow is the deadline to submit those questions. Great. Any other kind of old business, new business, anyone wants to bring forward and chat about? Did I see a hand? Keith. Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will begin working on, if anyone wants to work with me, I know that Jesse Bongiovanni has reached out on working on the logistics and how we go about the next community meeting for the employee forum, since we're required to have 2 a year. So the next one will be coming up. So if anyone wants to help work on that and how we go about doing that, let me know and we will do so.
Yes, please reach out.
Phil, when is your last day?
Oh my gosh, my last day is February 11th. So coming up here, but I am still on the state payroll until then. So happy to help or do whatever.
I just
do a mic
feel
drop,
like, well,
I missed some of that, but it looked like glitter dropping, what Katie just did.
Well, Katie, you know how I love if people are leaving to like throw stuff at them before you don't get to break up with me and it be easy. So no, you have to earn your way out of this. So okay, but no, if anyone wants to help Jesse and myself, just let us know and we are glad to have you.
Yeah, and please, yeah, like I said, please reach out to Keith and we'll get a group together to kind of start planning that process. We've had a few ideas floated at us, but if you want to bring other ideas of topics for that community meeting, please come to that meeting prepared to pitch in any ideas you have. I think some of the ideas, let's see here. Chime in if I'm missing anything. Let's see. We had ideas around, Dawn submitted an idea of having a discussion around community and what community actually means. And she had a book that she recommended. So that's something that we could potentially look into doing. Keith has it up right there. So that's a potential option. I know we had talked about doing a community meeting around the kind of vacancies and, staff salary compression and wage compression and stuff like that. That was an option floated. But like I said, we're open to ideas and we can kind of vote as a group as to what we want to talk about at the community meeting. So thanks, Keith, for volunteering to kind of take that on and take the lead on planning that. Laura, your hand's up.
Yes, I just want to do another shameless plug. I sent this to the listserv earlier, but we have a really exciting upcoming event. Oh my God, it's 2 weeks from today. That's terrifying. But we have invited the president of Johns Hopkins University, Ron Daniels, to come speak to the public, not just the UNC community, but open to the public, about his new book, What Universities Owe Democracy. I am digging my way through that book slowly, but I'm hoping there's some good conversation points about how staff can play into that role. So I hope you all can join us. Depending on your comfort level, you can join via Zoom webinar, or if you're on campus, we're going to actually have people sitting in chairs in the same room. Whoa. Big deal. We will be fully masked and spaced out, but that'll be in Pleasant. So again, shameless plug, February 16th, please register. I'll be there in person, so you can come see me because I would love to see you, but definitely register for that. So that's it.
Great. And yeah, Manisha put a comment in the chat about the book club. Next meeting is in March, so there's details in the chat about that if you're interested. Anything else anybody wants to bring forward before we adjourn for the day? Okay.
Just real quick, just to kind of answer people's questions that came up. I was going to hang out till we got to rules, but we can skip it. Technically, we are not required to follow open meeting laws. That also includes staff assembly. Back in 2006, there was a court case that UNC, I think it was actually UNC law professor, came up and felt like they were being unfairly required to follow the rules, and the court realized that the statute is kind of difficult to interpret, so they came up with a guideline that is actually accessible through the UNC systems policy page. I can put a link in if somebody wants it after I find it again. But basically the rule of thumb is that if it's not, I mean, basically think about it this way: if a chancellor, vice chancellor, provost, vice provost, or like head of HR isn't running it, and there isn't a massive kind of amount of power and ability to affect policy at a wide level, then you don't necessarily qualify. So in essence, so I think that's kind of where it came in with the staff assembly. Was the general counsel was like, you guys advise, but none of you are a high enough level management group made exclusively of this level of management. Therefore, you do, according to this court case in 2006, and the way that the court interpreted the statute, it does not apply to you. By that same token, it does not apply to us. So if we are, I think that it's still good practice. I think we should still continue to do so. I know that the faculty council has a similar awareness that they do not have to. They do so out of a sense of transparency. But I did want to just to clarify some points that had been brought up at the last meeting. So if it does become cost prohibitive for us at some point to maintain open meeting things, we can scale back on some of what we have been doing. But also to take some of the pressure off if we feel like we're screwing up, we're not. We don't have to.
That's helpful, Jacob. Thank you. It might be good at some point to have me, Matt, yourself, kind of chat with University Counsel's office to just get a definitive like heads up or heads down about, whether or not that definitely applies. I think you're right in that the faculty council is a similar standing, and staff assembly level at the system level also kind of has that understanding that they're not subject to it necessarily. But I agree, it's good practice and it's not been
right. The person that I got that information from is literally Freda Bluestein, who's one of our faculty members who actually wrote the book on open meeting laws as they applied to North Carolina, like literally wrote the book on it. So I bugged her for like 15 minutes in her office, and she like went over to her little shelf and dug out a little a little copy of it. I was like, okay, cool. She's like, yeah, it's not in the book, but this is the general guideline. And it is on the policy section of the system office. So they're aware of it and they are adhering to it. So I think that's why University Council made the ruling they did with staff assembly.
Great.
Anyway, long story. Try to make it shorter. Sorry about that.
No worries. Rules is always a fun thing to hear about. Everyone's excited to hear from her.
It's so much fun. That's why the parliamentarian is always an uncontested election.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, Jacob. Anything else? Keith put it in the chat. Again, reach out to him via email about the community meeting if you're interested in helping with that process. Do I hear a motion to adjourn for the day?
This is Arlene. I move we adjourn for the day.
Awesome.
This is Eliza, I second.
Second, all right. We are adjourned. Woo! Thank you all again for a great discussion today. We'll see each other again soon, either next week at the VC meeting, the following week at the executive committee meeting, and then eventually in our March next full body meeting. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your week.
Stay safe, stay warm.
Still last
Stay healthy.
meeting.
Hoping for snow too. Bye.
Bye, Phil, at your last full body meeting.
Yeah, bye. I think I'm going to come to Laura's thing in
Bye,
person,
Phil.
just so folks are around. I deleted it because I was like, it's after February 11th. I don't need to worry about that, but I didn't realize it was a big to do. But
It's a big deal.
thanks, folks.
Best wishes,
Bye.
Phil. You want to send me a Zoom or do you just want me to stay on?
I'll send you a Zoom.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good afternoon, all. Shutting down right now. Take care. Thank you.